If you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Follow the leader.
Oh my God.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
You know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day. It's a new life for me, yeah. It's a new dawn, it's a new day. It's a new life for me. Ooh, 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 ooh. And I'm feeling good. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. River running free, you know how I feel. Blossom on the tree, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me.
I'm Tavis Smiley. I'm delighted to have you tuned into our program today. In this hour, our final hour, two conversations. On the B side of this hour, the co-host of Entertainment Tonight, Nichelle Turner, joins us to help us unpack some trending entertainment stories, including, of course, the ongoing actors' strike, which at the moment shows no sign of abating. And, of course, we'll get her take on this Jada Pinkett Smith drama. The only word I can think of is oversharing. It's a classic example to me of oversharing. I don't care. I don't want to hear about that marriage no more. It's just oversharing, but that's just me. We'll hear what Nichelle has to say about that and trying to cover it every day on ET. But we begin this hour, though, celebrating the Underground Railroad, more specifically the Chicago-Detroit Freedom Trail, on which many journeyed to freedom. Pleased to be joined now by researcher and author Larry McClellan. Larry McClellan, how are you today, sir?
Well, doing just fine. Life is good.
Life is good, and I'm delighted to have you on. Let me start with this, a big question, and we'll jump from there. When you think about the Underground Railroad, not just this Chicago-Detroit trail, but when you think about the Underground Railroad writ large, all these years later, what most wows you? What wows you about the innovative and iconic nature of this path to freedom?
Well, I think the really remarkable thing is that talking about the Underground Railroad is really talking about two great cycles of stories.
Mm-hmm.
They're the stories of the people enslaved in the South who sought to seize their own freedom, and then there are the stories of the people that responded,
mm-hmm.
that eventually developed the networks, the Underground Railroad in response. And the thing that continues to, astonish me is to really see the depth of the humanity in all of it.
Mm.
That can you imagine people finding the means to just uproot themselves out of their lives and to seek their freedom, and then to travel hundreds and hundreds of miles? I mean, that always gets to me.
Yeah, I want to talk in a moment about the depth of that humanity. We just literally wrapped an hour. And at the close of our second hour today, we were talking about the humanity and dignity of our people, and for that matter, of all people. So I want to come back to that. I love how these dots connect throughout this program every day over 3 hours. But,
absolutely.
Yeah, before I do that, though, Larry, let me come back to this point you raised a moment ago about the people who responded. Because for me, that's always the part of the story about the Underground Railroad that gets me. I absolutely understand why black folk wanted to taste freedom. I get that. That's not rocket science. I certainly bow down every time I think of Harriet Tubman. And I tell folk all the time, there's a difference between optimism and hope. Harriet Tubman didn't go back 19 times because she was optimistic. She went back because she was hopeful that there'd be a day where these folk could get to freedom, and for generations not yet born, that we'd experience the kind of freedom that we have today. So I celebrate in ways I don't even have a language to describe the courage of this little small woman named Harriet Tubman. So there's no question about that. The thing that always jumps out at me, though, to your point, Larry, are the folk who responded. There were a whole lot of folk, a whole lot of white folk, who helped to build and navigate this Underground Railroad. And speaking of humanity, say a bit about those persons who responded and how even in a moment like this, when we see tragedies in this country and around the world, it does in fact require somebody to respond. Somebody's got to tell the truth. And if nobody tells the truth, if nobody taps into that humanity or that dignity, then that suffering, Larry, gets rendered invisible.
Right. And I think probably the most powerful thing in all that was that freedom seekers coming out of their enslavement, they were, if you will, showing up, and people had to respond.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for example, here in Illinois, you're traveling for hundreds of miles, and then showing up on someone's doorstep to, they need directions or perhaps some water or food, or they need help with one thing or another. And I think the remarkable thing is that lots of these in Illinois and other northern states, a lot of people were generally kind of anti-slavery, but that was an abstract kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But here, when people show up on your doorstep, you respond. And we have just loads and loads and loads of stories of people, in a sense, being surprised by freedom seekers and then realizing, we've got to respond to this. And then that response starts to organize itself. And then people, not only do you respond, but we've got to abolish this sin of slavery, etc.
Yeah.
But I think that, and I've actually, I've got some examples of people who were basically pro-slavery, living in the North. But when a freedom seeker shows up on their door, they of course respond. They help.
Yeah.
And I think that it's that kind of immediate contact that really reached into the hearts of a lot of white people and a lot of black people who were living in the North and said, we've got to help.
I want to, when we come forward, I want to come right to that point, talking about what happens when you're faced with it, when it's at your doorstep. And that's not just metaphorical, although it could be, but in real time. What do you do? Can you recognize the humanity and the dignity of people in front of you when they show up on your doorstep? Take it anywhere you want to take it. We'll talk about that in the context of this story. And I want to talk more with Larry about how those responses, as he put it, organized itself. How did that response organize itself? A great deal more to talk about, and we'll hone in specifically on that Chicago-Detroit Freedom Trail. But we're talking largely about the Underground Railroad all these years later, and what a marvelous creation it was, and all the folk who sort of made that happen. Our guest is Larry McClellan. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom.
Escalade IQ. This the intro to the all-electric Cadillac perfected like Zoom. And on a full charge, you get 450 miles without the stop. Haiku. This is what I do. Daddy fat intellect since 92. Linked all the way back, panoramic roof. Come with 24-inch rim standard. Ooh, why? Shawty don't kill him. Cadillac diamond in the back, cold chillin'. And when I'm on attack, on the track is no ceiling. Sky's the limit. You me? Straight drop, no parachutes. Lay lines like a longitude and latitude. Feel it, beloved, clearly we're hustling. Bussin', truckin'. Cadillac.
For more on the Escalade IQ, visit Cadillac.com.
Available late 2024. GM estimate 450-mile range on a full charge based on development testing and/or analytical projection. Consistent with SCHA 1634 revision 2017 MCT. Range subject to change prior to production. Annual rates may vary based on service factors, including ambience temperature, terrain, battery age, and condition loading, and how you use and maintain your vehicle.
The City of Los Angeles Civil Rights Department and its Reparations Advisory Commission are calling on you to be a part of something powerful. Join the Black Experience Study to share your experiences with the City of Los Angeles. We want to hear your stories. To join the study, join a focus group, or schedule an interview with us, visit www.blackexperiencela.com by December 31st. For more information, call 213-978-1845 or visit www.laisforeveryone.com.
For all of us, this generation and the next, there is simply no place in our lives for litter. And yet, it's everywhere we look. And unfortunately, it does belong to all of us. So, let's come together and create a litter-free, clean California, once and for all. Remember to properly dispose of your trash and recycling. Secure truckloads with tarps to keep debris from flying out. Clean out your car when you're at a gas station. Take pride in your community by organizing a cleanup event. Or join a cleanup event near you. Zero litter is the goal. Join us at cleanca.com. That's cleanca.com. Let's do it together. Brought to you by Caltrans. cleanca.com.
Do you have both Medi-Cal and Medicare? The new LA Care health plan called LA Care Medicare Plus, HMO DSNP, can help you get the most out of your health plan for $0 premium. LA Care is here to provide Angelinos with access to quality health care at an affordable cost. For $0 premium, you can get full benefits from vision coverage and in-home support services to prescription drug coverage, plus more. Call 855-688-1479. 855-688-1479.
Ready to re-examine your assumptions and expand your inventory of ideas? More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
All right, Larry McClellan, let me jump right in. First, let me share with the audience that Larry's book is called Onward to Chicago, Freedom Seekers and the Underground Railroad in Northeastern Illinois. He's a researcher and writer. Again, the book is called Onward to Chicago. We're talking, of course, about the Underground Railroad, this intricate network of secret routes and safe houses to help slaves seek freedom in the North and in Canada. So, Larry, you said two things moments ago that I want to give you a chance to unpack for me right quick and we'll move forward. The first is just a pretty basic question, and I love the way you laid it out. So you tell the story of those who were, in fact, pro-slavery, but when a slave, an escaped slave, shows up on your doorstep, what do you do?
Right. Yeah, and I think that really points to the core of the stories, and that is that we need to understand that the freedom seekers were the protagonists. They were the ones that were on the move. They were the travelers, and that various people responded to them. Some people might have been somewhat anti-slavery, and then they were really willing to help. Other people that were pro-slavery, as I indicated, that confronted by a person on their front door, decided to help. But the key is that for basically 160 years, much of what's been written about the Underground Railroad side of it has to do with kind of the romantic, courageous activity of predominantly white men. Mm-hmm. And what we've got to see is that the protagonists in all this are the people seeking their freedom, and those that responded were men and women and black abolitionists and white abolitionists and all kinds of people that really were confronted by having folks arrive on their farm, on their doorstep, and saying, we have to respond. And then those people start to talk with each other and build networks of responding to these travelers.
We were talking earlier on our program today, Larry, in fact, just last hour, about the Martin Scorsese epic film everybody's talking about, Killers of the Flower Moon, which premiered this weekend in theaters across the country. And while many people call it a masterpiece, part of what still chagrins people is that he still leans a little heavily on centering white men and their story in his depiction of this book, Killers of the Flower Moon. Here you come now in this hour talking about the fact that the story of the Underground Railroad as told to date is really about the white men, mostly, who did their part to help these Negroes who were trying to get to freedom. I hear your point now that it is those seeking freedom who are the protagonists. Let me ask you why it's important to flip the frame at this point in our history.
Well, I think it's important because that is the real depth of it. That's our real history. That and we all know, and we've seen it countless numbers of times that Black history matters because it enriches the history for all of us, mm-hmm. and that the Underground Railroad traditions are rightfully acknowledge the response and the help of all kinds of people, but we really have to be making sure that people understand, so that we've got this full human story, that it is people enslaved seeking their freedom that really are the engine for all of this. Mm-hmm. And the Underground Railroad emerges as a response to these people who are seizing what is theirs.
Yep. So, if I can put it this way, just trying to advance this issue you raised earlier. So this is a sort of a loose network, if I can use that phrase, and if I'm wrong, you can disabuse me of that when you respond. But this is basically sort of a loose network of people responding to the tragedy, responding to the humanity that they are forced to see when it shows up on their doorstep. But as you put it earlier, this sort of loose network eventually organized itself. Can you explain that for me in the audience about what you mean when you say it organized itself?
Sure. I think that as there are kind of two dynamics here. One is that people, particularly in small communities and also in farm areas, as they began to experience some contact with freedom seekers, talking among themselves, realized that this was going to be an ongoing thing, and that they ought to organize their responses to be able to provide some real assistance to freedom seekers. In cities like Chicago, there were small black communities, and they very quickly organized themselves to be able to respond to the needs of freedom seekers coming through. And by the early 1840s, those networks of response, in some places very loose and other places really well organized, they began to talk about themselves as the Underground Railroad.
Mm.
But there were places. Remember, there were some freedom seekers traveled totally independently. Others needed assistance from time to time. By the 1840s, in places like Chicago, where there was a very, very strong black community, there was a really developed network of assisting people from place to place to place.
Mm-hmm.
So it ranged from being very loose to being pretty well organized by the 1840s.
Mm-hmm. Give us a sense of what Illinois policy was like, public policy I'm talking about, was like at that moment. So they're passing through Detroit, Chicago, but there was no freedom in Chicago at that point. Just historically, give us a sense of what was going on in Illinois at this time, the time of the Underground Railroad.
Right, I think that's a very important consideration particularly in the 1840s, and then after 1850, and the passage of the Fugitive Slave Law, which was one of the really great injustices in our national history. But anyway, that it was very uncomfortable and very dangerous for any people of color living in the state of Illinois. The so-called black codes were just very onerous, and the demands upon free blacks to have, identification papers, and they were severely limited in all kinds of ways, so that the overall public conditions and legal conditions were very, very onerous, very, very serious. However, after 1850, the black leadership and the white leadership in Chicago and other places was strong enough that freedom seekers could move in relative safety. They had to be very discreet,
mm-hmm.
but in relative safety. And so in Illinois, and I believe in a number of other places, there was, on the legal side, things were really horrendous. But on the practical side, people were discovering ways to be discreet, but to evade the bad laws.
Mm-hmm. You said something a moment ago, and I'm not going to let you slide by. Some other hosts might let you get away with that, but I'm going to ask you to unpack this for me because everybody heard it, and I don't want to act like I didn't. Furthermore, this program today seems, Larry, to be about injustices. We've talked about Israel and Palestine. We talked about the Native Americans. We talked about black folk, and here we are talking about slaves, black folk once again.
Yep.
So you said you made reference and said this is one of the great injustices in American history. You teed it up, but you left us hanging. So back up a few beats and unpack one of those great injustices in American history that you referenced a moment ago.
Okay, as part of the great compromises in 1850, as they were trying to hold the country together, one of the elements in that was the passage of the Fugitive Slave Law of 1850. And the components in that law were just astonishing. The blunt support that it provided to slave catchers, the penalties that it placed upon anybody that was going to assist folks that were called fugitive slaves. It created just a very, very serious situation with serious consequences. If slave catchers came into your town and you were called to serve on a posse, you had to do it. You could run the possibility of being fined $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's like $20,000 today.
Mm-hmm.
If you did not, and the federal law said you have to help slave catchers.
Mm.
I mean, it was just, the stuff was just it was just awful.
Mm-hmm.
and then that got compounded in 1857 by the passage of the Dred Scott case, where the possibilities for black people, free people, and for enslaved people, just got more and more limited and curtailed.
Yeah. See, I knew something, of course, of that law, having studied it and talked about it over the course of my career, but I couldn't let you slide past that because I wanted to make sure that we were all make sure we're all on the same page here, because I want us just to pause for a second, to Larry's point, and think about being told that you had no choice but to help these slave catchers, and if you didn't, they'd fine you $1,000, again, like $20,000 in today's terms. But just think about that you had no choice. Even if you were anti-slavery, you had no choice in being told. It's like being drafted, right? You're drafted.
Well, in a sense, really, yeah.
Yeah, to help these slave catchers. And if you don't do it, you got a fine. Such was the level of hatred for black folk in this country that they would make you track these Negroes down. If you didn't, you would pay a heavy fine for that. So I'm glad I asked that, and more importantly, I'm glad you answered it with that kind of detail. So thank you for that. Let me move now to ask you to say more about this Chicago-Detroit Freedom Trail that you are focused on pretty intently these days.
Yeah, I mean, we're very excited about this. The key that we've been talking about is that how do we understand that in all of this, that it was the movement of freedom seekers that created the responses, and all of these networks developed as a response. And then the very serious question comes up, well, how is it that people traveled? There's a whole set of questions. How do they come out of the South?
Mm-hmm.
Where did they settle, or where did they pass through? And then here in Illinois, well, where did they go?
Mm-hmm.
And we knew the great irony. The only way to be free was to leave the land of the free,
mm-hmm.
particularly after 1850. And they had to head for Detroit and then across the River of Freedom in Canada. And so a lot of us here in the Chicago region were saying, well, where exactly did they travel? Where did they go? What roads did they use? Who assisted them? And as we've started talking, we've got groups now working together in Bronzeville, in Chicago, in the south suburbs of Chicago, in northwest Indiana. We've got groups of people getting together saying, now, what are the places they stopped? What are the roads they used? And we're really beginning to see maybe we can piece all of this together to create a national historic trail.
Mm-hmm.
And that you're aware, of course, that the Selma to Montgomery Trail,
sure,
which commemorates a whole different part of African American history.
Mm-hmm.
But we're really hoping that the Chicago to Detroit Freedom Trail will help us commemorate the remarkable journeys of folks traveling often by foot, hundreds of miles.
Yeah.
On their way to freedom.
Don't they have something in place like this already, Larry, in Ohio? I mean, of course, the Underground Railroad goes up the Ohio River through the state of Ohio. As I recall, I've been to a couple stops there. I think in Ohio they already have something like this. Do they not? Are you unaware of that?
Well, yeah, there are a variety of things around the country that are in this direction.
Right.
Where there have, within some states there have been, interstates that have been named as freedom corridors. There are other places like in Ohio and Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
They have put things together. We think this may be the first multi-state effort looking at Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
But I think all that we can do to emphasize the journeys of freedom seekers reinforces that the kind of remarkable humanity of this whole thing of people finding the means to find their own freedom.
Yeah. I'm thinking now, and this might be my closing question here. I'm thinking I grew up in Indiana, so I'm glad to know that Indiana is a part of this story. And of course, I love Chicago. Spent a lot of time there over the course of my career and life. Love the city. And I'm thinking as you're talking about all the years I've been in Illinois and all the times I've glanced down at these Illinois license plates, which have bragged for years about the land of Lincoln and the land of the free. And I take your point that you referenced earlier, which just jumped out at me, that for these black folk to be free, they had to leave the land of the free. Is that an irony or what, Larry McClellan?
Yeah, isn't that, the great irony of that?
Yeah.
And I think that again, we just can't lose sight of the fact that we have this part of our history that we just really need to look at in as full and direct ways as we can, because for a lot of folks it was a very very hard time.
It's an amazing project that Larry McClellan and others have undertaken, working to create a Chicago-Detroit Freedom Trail to commemorate the journeys of those who sought to be free. And he is right. He's absolutely right about the fact that these black folk, they are the protagonists. Everybody else responds to them, but it is these freedom seekers who have to be situated at the epicenter of this particular story, not the white men who did their part to help them, but the protagonists, the black folk who were fighting for their freedom. His book is called Onward to Chicago, Freedom Seekers and the Underground Railroad in Northeastern Illinois. Larry McClellan, thank you, first of all, for your work. I love this project. Congrats on the book, and thank you again for this conversation. I appreciate your time, sir.
Well, I'm delighted to be able to talk with you, and really, really enjoyed the conversation.
Likewise. Thank you for your time. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
From Leimert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found BenefitsCheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. BenefitsCheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee says it's necessary to provide aid to Palestinian civilians in Gaza during the Israel-Hamas war. Speaking on Fox News Sunday, Washington State Democratic Congressman Adam Smith said without the aid, civilians in Gaza will starve, and he doesn't want to see 2 million Palestinians die. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries is calling on Republicans to work with Democrats to elect a speaker after Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan failed to get the votes to be speaker for a third time. Jeffries called on Republicans to break with extremists. The African-American House Minority Leader signaled he's open to expanding the power of interim Speaker Patrick McHenry or another Republican who Democrats approve of. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
A busy drive through Boyle Heights, troubles in Arcadia, and looks like Lawndale. They're wrapping up this trouble on the 405 north at Hawthorne is where we had a crash from earlier. That is still busy. The drive as far back as the 91 Artesia Boulevard in this area. Arcadia, it's going to be collision affecting our 210 west at Baldwin Avenue. Left lane blocked with the crash. As you get to the 605 freeway, you're on and off the brakes. Wrapping up this trouble on the 14 south at the 5 freeway. Had a wreck in the center divider. Rollover collision cleared, but do expect a busy drive. Stalled vehicles slowing your travels as you head through Baldwin Park on the 10 west, right at Baldwin Park Boulevard. 3 of the right lanes are blocked here. We're busy from Puente Avenue.
Hey, if you're thinking of getting the latest iPhone, you need to stop and check out the wireless offer from Boost Infinite. For more, just pick up your phone and dial pound 250 and say Boost Infinite. That's pound 250 and Boost Infinite. You'll have the option to receive a one-time auto-dialed text message from this station's network.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. If you're like many people, you may think custom blinds is a job for expensive professionals. Well, at Blindster, if you have a tape measure and a screwdriver, you can install our custom blinds and save big. Plus, we guarantee they'll fit. Blindster.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Tough day yesterday for both of LA's NFL teams. The Rams lose at home to Pittsburgh by a touchdown. The Chargers lose at Kansas City by 2 touchdowns. The Rams failed to score in the fourth quarter. They dropped to 3-4. 3 of their 4 losses have come at SoFi. The Rams are at home next Sunday against Chicago. The Chargers are now 2-4. They went scoreless the entire second half at KC. The Chargers are at Dallas next Sunday. The top 5 in this week's AP college football rankings: Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Florida State, and Washington. USC, which has lost 2 straight, fell to 24th. UCLA at 5-2 is ranked 23rd. It's the first time UCLA has been ranked ahead of USC in the polls since 2012. UCLA is at home this Saturday against Deion Sanders in Colorado. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
As veterans, we're no strangers to helping others.
That's what we were taught, service before self.
But we do have one question for the veterans listening.
When was the last time you reached out for help?
If you or someone you know needs resources, whether it's for stress, finances, employment, or mental health, don't wait. Reach out.
Find more information at va.gov/reach. That's va.gov/reach.
Brought to you by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the Ad Council.
At Susan G. Komen, we believe that ending breast cancer needs all of us working together. Because if you've just been diagnosed and don't know where to turn, we've got you. If you can't afford the treatment you need, we've got you. And if you are driven to honor the loved one you've just lost, we have a place for you here. Because of you, we're supporting those who need help today while tirelessly searching for tomorrow's cures. Visit Komen.org and be a part of our Susan G. Komen community today.
Hey, everything okay?
Yes, I'm fine.
Honey. Hey, I'm here for you. Tell me about school today.
When kids can't find the right words, music can help them sound it out. Talk to the kids in your life about their emotional well-being. Find tools and resources at sounditouttogether.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and Pivotal Ventures.
Hello?
Man, where are you? I thought you were coming.
I can't. I'm in bed with the flu.
The flu? Whoa. Grandma's about to crowd surf. Man, I'll call you back.
Don't get stuck at home with the flu. A flu shot is safe, effective, and you can get it at the same time as your COVID-19 vaccine. A flu shot is the best way to prevent the flu and its potentially serious complications. Don't get flu FOMO. Learn more at getmyflushot.org.
Brought to you by the AMA, CDC, and the Ad Council.
Only 1 in 5 people with autism are employed, despite many having the skill set and desire to work.
Maybe it's because employers don't know what kind of jobs they can do. Like, what about a programmer?
That's a job for someone with autism.
How about a healthcare worker?
Yep, that is too. People with autism can do a lot of different jobs, but often get overlooked due to outdated stigmas. Introducing WIN by Autism Speaks. We help businesses lead the way in inclusive hiring.
What about a ranch hand?
To learn more, go to autismspeaks.org/win.
Who do you trust to get at the truth?
Tavis Smiley.
That's who. The conversation continues right now.
I'm going to end up paying a royalty for this that I cannot afford. Playing the theme music from E.T. I love theme songs. When you hear it, you know exactly what's about to come, and that one stands out. I grew up watching Entertainment Tonight, and of course, over the course of my career, I've done a number of things for E.T. and appeared on E.T. And it's my great joy to welcome to this program Nichelle Turner, who's the co-host for Entertainment Tonight. And I want to just start, Nichelle, before I ask you anything and talk about any of these news issues, I want to just start with a tribute to you and Kevin. I saw Kev not long ago. He and I were together a little while ago, Kevin Frazier. And it is, as we say around here, we're rooting for everybody black. And I remember the first night when it was announced, the first night I tuned in. I get a chance to watch it every night, but I had a chance to tune in when the announcement was made that you and Kevin would be doing this, because I wanted to just revel in this moment of seeing these two brilliant and beautiful black people co-anchor the longest-running daily syndicated entertainment program in this country. That is a big deal. So I want to start by just saying congratulations to you and Kevin, and ask what it's like to be two black folk helming this program every day.
Yeah. I mean, when you say it sits even more with me, Tavis, and it's something, by the way, thank you for that, because I've also been a fan of yours for a very long time, so I thank you for that. But, it feels really good. Kevin and I have been friends for a very long time. So we're actually more than friends. His kids call me auntie, so we're family. And so being able to do this show with somebody who I consider family is a blessing in itself, but then also somebody who looks like me, it makes it all the more sweeter. And I think, one of the things that kind of concerned me at the beginning, Tavis, was when they named me, I was nervous, because I said, is America ready for this? Is America ready for, two black folks to be helming this show? And what I got back was a lot of really wonderful affirmation. It was a lot of people who said, I thought you were the host of the show anyway. I mean, I thought you guys have been doing it together for the longest time, because you're always there together. So for me, it just felt like people expected this. They love seeing us together. What you see is what you get from us on the air. Kevin gets on my last nerve. And that's just the way it's just the way it is. And people see that every day. I love it, but Lord gets on my nerves. And we just have that relationship with each other. But it does feel good to know that, America was ready for us and ready for me to be, the first black woman to host this show in its history. And it just, it's just been really affirming. And I think that having that representation here within the building too has really helped shape this show in a way that is, forward thinking, that's inclusive, that's diverse, because Kevin and I both have voices in the room where the decisions are made of what we consume on a daily basis. So we really have helped shape this show in a way that I'm really proud of.
To your point,
that's what we both want at the end of the day, to see more people who look like us representing Hollywood as well.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm glad. Thank you for that.
No, you're fine.
No. Let me ask you right quick. And this is not. I'm saying this with all seriousness. This is not an opportunity for you to brown nose your bosses. But I'm asking because we talk all the time in Black America, and certainly on this program and in my career, I've had enough conversations about the dearth and the paucity of black folk in rooms who make decisions in Hollywood. We know that story well. It's changing, but it's changing with the pace at a turtle's pace, as they say. That's how slowly it's changing, if not surely. But the thing that made me stand up and pay attention to E.T. was the fact that somebody made this decision. Somebody white signed off on this decision to put two black folk out front doing this every day.
White folks signed off.
A whole bunch of white folks signed off on it.
Perfectly honest.
Yeah, and I'm curious as to what you make of that, because again, we can complain legitimately. So we've got legitimate grievances about this industry, but at the same time, when some white folk make a decision to do something that is in fact courageous, I mean, let's be clear: the impact of black folk on Hollywood is undeniable. It's incontrovertible. We've had our say, and we're doing more and more every day. But still, for some white folk to decide to put two black folk out front, that was a big deal, Nichelle.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we're the longest running syndicated news magazine show in the country. 43 years it's been on the air.
Mm-hmm.
And for so many people, Entertainment Tonight is their gold standard of entertainment news, and it's their kind of Bible of entertainment news.
Mm-hmm.
And our core audience is the heartland of America. It's those corners of America that aren't LA, New York, Chicago, whatnot. And so you do have to think about that when you're putting the face of your show to reach those people. What are we saying to America? And I think that our bosses, Steve Ocasio, Rich Cervini, and Aaron Johnson, who is our executive producer, who it really was a lot on her. I mean, I will say she's young, she's fresh, she's forward thinking. And, she said to me when she's offering me this job, we're kind of late to the Nichelle party, but we've always known we needed to be here. And this is right. This team is right. You and Kevin are right, and I'm not worried about anything else because I know that I have the best and most talented people for the job, regardless of what you look like. So that, to me, was a real testament to have that faith in me, because I wasn't sure that was ever going to happen. I've been here 9 years. And we had some other regimes that wouldn't have made this decision.
Sure.
So to have her in there and say, no, this is what we're going to do, and to have the other, the people above her say, absolutely. And I will say, too, we have a new head of this network, George Cheeks, who is a black man. And I know that he has been a champion of this move since the day he walked in the building. So everybody was in a line, and everybody said, we understand this is the moment we need to do this. This is actually also a decision that's bigger than just this show, and we're going to embrace that. And I appreciate it. I really appreciate that.
Nope. Somebody once said that every race of people ought to be judged by the best they've been able to produce and not by the worst. And when it comes to news, entertainment news coverage, hard to do better than Nichelle Turner and Kevin Frazier. So I, again, wanted to start this conversation by celebrating them. That said, there is some entertainment stuff I do want to cover with Nichelle Turner. So when we come forward, we'll jump into a few stories that I'm fascinated to get her take on. And you're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Unapologetically progressive. Unapologetically black. You're tapped into Tavis Smiley.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
It's a different world at Pasadena City College. Come find out why during PCC's On the Yard HBCU Caravan, happening Tuesday, October 24th from 4 to 6 p.m. on the Colorado Boulevard campus of Pasadena City College. Over 20 historically black colleges and universities will be on campus, and some colleges will be offering on-the-spot admissions. You heard that right, on the spot. All you need to do is bring your unofficial transcripts. So come to PCC's On the Yard HBCU Caravan for the opportunity to win scholarships and prizes, enjoy some mouth-watering DD's Chicken Cat Shack, and tasty burgers from Fat Boys for free. It's all happening on Tuesday, October 24th. The HBCU Caravan is proudly presented by PCC's Transfer Center, Office of Inclusion, Equity, Diversity, and Justice, and the California Community Colleges, Chancellor's Historically Black Colleges, and Universities Initiative. For more information, visit pasadena.edu/HBCU or call 626-585-7287.
Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean. Of course I use Mr. Clean Magic Eraser to clean tough messes off my stovetop and bathtub. But then I discovered I can also use it to easily clean my patio furniture and even my shoes. I'm hooked.
And when wipes won't cut it, I use Magic Eraser Sheets. They're thin and flexible erasers, perfect for everyday messes, like gunk on my counters and sinks. They really are magical.
The reviews are in. Mr. Clean Magic Eraser and Sheets make cleaning look easy.
Don't settle for bumps, ingrowns, and itch due to dry skin. Venus for Pubic Hair and Skin is here with the only razor and regimen specifically designed for your pubic area, featuring a razor with a patented irritation defense bar and skincare regimen that is dermatologist and gynecologist tested. Venus helps protect your pubic skin from shave irritation. Visit GilletteVenus.com to learn more about our full regimen of products.
Smart talk for curious people just like you. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Nichelle Turner, who, of course, is the co-host of Entertainment Tonight, along with Kevin Frazier, and I'm honored to have Nichelle on this program. All right, watching my clock here, Nichelle, I know you got a full schedule to get ready for your show today, but let me just throw a couple things at you. I'm gonna hold the Jada thing as long as I can because I'm just
oh boy,
exactly. Oh boy, no, old girl, yeah, old girl. It's more like it. For me, that's just the quintessential example of oversharing. It's just too much for me, but hold on to that. We'll get to that in a moment. Let me start on a serious note. I'm a member of the Screen Actors Guild, a SAG member, not unlike you and everybody else in this town. And I'm a union member. So I support the union, always have. That's my personal and public take. And yet I am getting more and more trouble that this thing seems to continue unabated. You are covering this every day. Give me some of your insights as you're covering this story.
Well, we have passed the 100-day mark for the actors portion of this strike. So I think you're right to be concerned. I mean, we were having the conversation in our newsroom the other day about, the end of the year. This is the time of year we usually get the movies that are going to make their award show, award season run. And so we were thinking, like, what's coming out? Because all of the movies have gotten pushed. There's really not a lot out there. There's not a lot to consume. There are some things that are upcoming. Of course, The Color Purple, one of them that we're all looking forward to. But,
sure.
The actors not being out to do their promotion and to talk about these things, and people just not being at work, even though the writers are back to work, production is not back to work because the actors are on strike. I think there's a glimmer of hope that the AMPTP, which is the studios, came back to the actors and said, let's come back to the table when they walked away last week. They're going to return to the table tomorrow. They're going to resume negotiating. But I do have to say, the one thing that I had been concerned about all along with the writers, they were standing their ground, but there wasn't a lot of talking. I do believe that the Actors Guild, they've been a little more, it's been a little more contentious, a little more outspoken, a little more back and forth going on. And so I do think there is a deep divide. What we're seeing is that divide is about money, Tavis, and is about, revenue sharing. And at the end of the day, what do we know? People don't want to share their money. So I'm concerned that there's such a big divide. I think, from one side to the other, they're saying there's about a $500 million divide there, which is a big chunk. So I'm hoping that this week, that there's been some bigger names that have gotten involved publicly now, George Clooney and those things, that maybe a new meeting of the minds and hearing kind of some other ideas can bring them a little bit closer. But this has got to end. I mean, if this goes into the holiday season, it's going to be tragic going into 2024.
Now, I saw the Clooney story. He and some other big names. That was, I thought, a pretty novel idea that they put forth about reducing their own dues. To increasing their dues, rather, to help out others who are engaged in this strike. So that was, I thought, was again a pretty novel concept. Let me ask you right quick, how it is that you all have done a show without having access to actors? I'm laughing because I've lost some big conversations here. Denzel was coming on for Equalizer 3. That didn't happen, and a bunch of other stars. Denzel's huge, but a lot of folk we've been booking on the show or plan to book or have on, and we had to let that stuff go because they can't talk to promote their projects. So how y'all doing the show? You ain't got no actors to talk to.
Well, I mean, not to rub it in a little bit, but I had Denzel last week.
Okay.
I did sit down with him.
Okay.
And you pivot. So instead of talking about his projects, we talked about the Boys and Girls Club.
Sure.
He did an appearance with Rich Paul at the Boys and Girls Club. So I sat down with both of them to talk about Rich's book and Denzel's commitment to the Boys and Girls Club. So sometimes you have to pivot and you have to get creative when they can't talk about their projects. But we've been focused a lot in the last few months on musicians because, they can still do things. So we've been focused much more on music than we usually have been. And also the reality space and the talk show space can still do things. So we've been focused more on that. You do have to find creative ways because we still have to put on a show every single day.
Sure.
Besides covering the strike, we've got to fill 22 minutes every day. So we've been doing a lot of that. And, there are some projects that have gotten interim agreements. I just sat down with the cast of the new movie coming out, Priscilla, which is, about Elvis Presley and Priscilla Presley from her point of view. They got an exception, so I was able to sit down with them. But the pickings have been slim. I mean, you're not wrong. It's been tough.
Yep. No, not easy covering entertainment when you can't get actors to talk about their projects in particular. So I take your point. Our remaining moments with Nichelle Turner when we come forward, and we'll talk about what else. Jada Pinkett Smith, you're listening to Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
What's up, party people? It's your favorite MC's favorite rapper, MC Light here. And we're celebrating 50 years of hip-hop, authentically powered by Cadillac. And we're going to take it way back to where it started. It was only fitting that hip-hop began with teenagers at a back-to-school jam in the rec room of a South Bronx apartment complex by an 18-year-old brother. By the way, I'm also sure he had a Cadillac parked outside. He noticed the energy on the dance floor when he switched between two turntables, extending the beats, repeating the breaks, and never losing the rhythms. And that was the birth of hip-hop. And from that moment, it took off.
For more on how Cadillac is celebrating hip-hop's 50th, visit Cadillac.com/audacity.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Maisha Cairo here with a quick recap from my time at JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. There were speakers Ian Dunlap, Damon John, Lynn Richardson, MC Light, Dom Kennedy, to name a few. Take a listen to what Justin Grant, Community Development Lead at Chase's Advancing Black Pathway, let's see what he had to say.
So I'm Justin Grant. I lead community development and national partnerships for JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Pathway strategy. And so we're focused on strengthening the economic foundation of black communities, and we're making targeted investments in programs like the Advancing Black Wealth Tour to help us get our tools and resources out to the community to drive sustained impact over time.
So when it comes to black and brown people, it sounds like Chase is making it their personal responsibility, not only to facilitate these events, but to educate and provide resources. So Mr. Grant, I have to ask, what does wealth building look like for the individual?
It's home ownership, it's having that freedom to be able to start your own business and create jobs in your community, and it's having that long-term plan towards retirement, having that vision for what you want your life to be, and you have the resources to actually live it.
I'm Maisha Cairo. Thanks for sticking around. That was my recap from Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. First stop was here in LA, and they're taking it national.
You're all set with your Medicare prescriptions, Mrs. Brown.
This is not just low-cost copays at Walgreens.
I can actually help you set up 90-day refills if you want.
This is having a partner you can trust. Get low-cost copays, 90-day refills, and delivery from your neighborhood Walgreens. This is being independent. Together. Walgreens.
Restrictions apply. For details, see walgreens.com/pharmacy.
Let's get back to more of Tavis Smiley right now.
Got a few minutes left here with Nichelle Turner, the co-host of Entertainment Tonight, who I'm delighted in having on this program today. We'll do it again down the road. Nichelle, okay, Jada Pinkett. As I said earlier, to my mind, this is a quintessential example of oversharing, but that's just me. And I think here's what concerns me, and I'll get out of the way and let you have the final word here. What concerns me, and I've written, 24, 25 books in my life, I understand what it means to sell a book, and Jada is really good at that, and Will knows how, obviously, better than most to sell a film. So, but there's a fine line between selling books, I think, and turning people off, people who may have been fans of yours all along. And I'm just getting worried. I'm just getting worried that line for Jada is getting blurred between selling a book and again, turning people off because of your approach, your style, what you're saying. People feel like she's going in on Will and throwing Will under the bus. I mean, I've heard all kind of stuff, as have you. But anyway, that's my take. Let me shut up and pass the mic to you.
I mean, this one is a tough one for me because you have to think about both sides of it, from a coverage part of it and from an entertainment, journalist part of it. I mean, there's so much there.
It's gold. It's gold.
We have content every single day, right? You know, I'm just like literally every day last week we had a different story.
Sure.
And so it gives us a lot of content. On the other side of it, I just was a huge fan of both of them and the Black love that they showed us, and that unwavering commitment that we felt like they had. So now it feels a little bit like, were they being frauds? And you start asking these questions and whatnot. And really, is it our business to know all of this? So yeah, you're saying a lot here, and not only, especially since we saw the slap happen on stage and then the fallout from it and then coming to the red table and the entanglement and all of that. So now to get the book and to find out they weren't even together and what was happening. It's just like, whoa, this is overload. And so I think people, I mean, you don't really want to judge what people think by social media, but
sure.
It's a tough road for Jada right now because I think that there's a collective, just turning away from her. And I think that men, women, black, white, old, young are kind of like, enough, sis. But on the other hand, I do believe in a woman's right to tell her truth, and to tell her story. And that is what she's doing, for good, bad, or, weird.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but I want them to be whole. And I think the end for me was when she came on the Today Show and said, "Oh, we're working our way back to one another." I'm like, hold on.
Yeah.
So now after all of this, now you
Yeah, it's too much. It's just too much. But to your point, people have a right to self-determination. They have a right to tell their stories. And as we say, the market will decide. I just hope that the market ultimately doesn't decide against Jada and that she does no harm to Will. That's the Hippocratic Oath, right? To do no harm.
Well, I think the harm has been done, Tavis. If we're being honest. I mean, Will's stock has taken a huge hit. I mean, we saw it. Trying to open movies before Emancipation didn't do well.
Right.
It kind of flailed, and I know he was trying his best, and the movie itself had some issues, but I think that people didn't really take to him.
No, I think you're right. I just don't want Jada. That's my point. I don't want Jada to do any additional harm. That's my point. That I don't want any additional harm to be done. But I digress. It ain't my book. It's her book. And Jada, do your thing. Nichelle Turner, co-host of Entertainment Tonight. Nichelle, congratulations once again on being in that chair. You deserve it. You've earned it. And I hope you will come be in this chair with us once again somewhere down the road. Thanks for your time, Nichelle.
I appreciate it, and anytime you need it, I'm here.
All right, appreciate you very much. There you have it.
Thank you.
3 hours gone. Back tomorrow. Do it all over again, Lord willing. Until then, thanks for tuning in to Tavis Smiley, and as always, keep the faith.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. A man accused of killing a Maryland judge at his own